when it comes to that lady, okay, I got a bit emotional, definitely. Or I don't. I feel like I'm trying to control it, but yeah, I feel like I got a vision of this barn and this 6 year old being fostered to parents only forced to work on farms her whole life, and yeah. I don't know where this vision is coming from, but that's just a vision that I saw. I'm seeing this girl who's been fostered by parents because this is her new life, but really her parents just treated her like a slave her whole life, and I don't know if it is that lady or whatever, but that's the vision that I'm getting. And I think people need to recognize that if people are starting to get emotional about things, you shouldn't see it as a mental illness. You shouldn't see it as them being possessed by demons. No, you should see it as maybe they're tapping into a memory that they have from a past life. You know, being fostered and then having something go wrong, e.g. the parents using you or not mistreating you, and then you spending the rest of your life maybe not even knowing who your parents are. You know, it causes a lot of trauma because of the sort of the belief that you are from your parents' line. You know, your family matters. You know, there's so much belief around your family tree and your parents. You know, there's loads of, wow, you know, who was your family tree and who were your parents or who are your ancestors and stuff like this. And I think realistically it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. Who you were in your past life is actually what's more important. You know, what were you in your past life? What did you experience? You know, were you a king in your past life? Were you a slave? Most people were slaves at some point. You know, that's something you have to experience. And I think people who have emotions are more likely to be people who have had past lives. Okay, you can get too emotional and not learn to control your emotions. I don't know what mental illness is really. Like, I know my uncle is mentally ill, and I feel like he lost control of his ability to create emotions and stuff, and then they turned him to drugs as a way of solving it, but I think it ended up killing his brain cells and actually made him stupider, probably more able to control emotions, providing he takes lots and lots of drugs. I don't know what's happened, because I'm confused about the Xander one as well. Like, he seems so normal and talented and good at acting, you know, 20 years ago, and now he's definitely mentally ill. I would love to believe that it's an act, but because it is very realistic and very similar to my uncle, only he talks about sex a lot more. But I don't know if he's had, because the Xander character used to always make jokes about sex. You know, I can imagine it going down that path just because of him trying to relive that character whilst talking to fans and stuff, and then he sort of created I don't know, I'm hoping it's fake, but I don't know. So mental illness is different. You know, there's Yi and Justin. I guess Justin sometimes acts a little bit mentally ill or a bit crazy, but it's not uncontrollable, whereas Yi definitely seems, his mental illness seems very controllable. So looking at the two is the difference between people that have developed a mental illness versus normal people that are just a bit crazy and have false beliefs. But yeah, are they acting, or are they robots, or are they generally, do they know about this character role and they're just playing up to the character role, or is what I'm saying somehow creating some sort of program inside of them that are making them act in a certain way? I don't know. You know, this is why I can't enjoy going on holiday. I can't just say, okay, you know, I do have money that if I wanted to just take out £1,000 and go on holiday, I can do that. But I know I wouldn't be happy on this holiday because I don't have the answers that I need. The answers that I need is why people are ignoring me, why I don't know who knows about me or not, why it's been 12 years, why no one seems to be promoting the idea of a female Christ, or Christ being female and alive on earth. Why do I feel invisible here? And there's so many questions that I want to ask, and I guess I always had the goal of being in some sort of, my hair looks terrible, always had the of being in a type of Big Brother. I don't want that now. I hate the world too much. I want to audition just to tell them that I'm going to kill them soon. Like that's how I'm feeling towards them now. I don't know why they keep putting that show on. It's just, on one hand it feels like no one's listening, on the other hand I know that people are, and it's not just the one. I'm not talking about the couple of the 15 hits that I get each day. No, I'm not talking about that. There's thousands or perhaps hundreds. I don't know. There's lots of people that know, and I can't go on holiday and enjoy that holiday knowing that no one is talking to me and everyone is just acting like I'm invisible. And it's a horrible thing. And if people are led by emotions, they need to realize that maybe these emotions have come from bad experiences that they've had, and then to just dismiss it as being a robot. I feel like by doing that, you in yourself are being a robot, because you are not understanding where this emotion comes from or why they would feel so emotional over something. If someone feels emotional over something, okay, it might be the yeast styled mental illness, which I don't understand. I don't understand the yeast side of stuff, you know. I know, I think it's an act. Maybe it's an act. I don't know. But there are people that act like Yi, and he is doing a good job of acting mentally ill. And I don't know why they'd be irrational, or why they'll have over emotional, getting emotional over. You know, there's a crazy type of emotion that doesn't seem to be led by logic. But there is another type of emotion, which is just where people are led by past traumas, or you say things and it can trigger memories, or perhaps you've got a friend and you know your friend is suffering this, or perhaps you even had a friend who died because of a pregnancy that she didn't want, you know, or maybe your kid died for getting pregnant too young and it wasn't, you know, old enough to be able to have a kid. And kids are very expensive, and the more kids you have, the more the government has to spend money on them. Why is the government taking money off people who are struggling to pay their bills, struggling to have a good life, struggling because of wildfires or whatever? Why should the government take their money off this to help raise kids that parents don't even really want them? And then to think that this guy is just being like, we should just help them. Can't the government just help them? Well, if the government just helps them, they're going to have to, you know, the government's not just getting money out of, well, they probably are just getting money out of nowhere, but when they take money out of nowhere, this rises the cost of money, and money becomes less valuable, hence everyone is suffering. Why is everyone suffering just to help people have kids? That they need more abortions need to happen, more people need to be encouraged not to have kids unless it's needed. And I know there's a small chance that if you have an abortion it damages something and they can't have kids again, you know. I know that is a small risk, but I think that's a risk that people need to take, and they need to do it for God, because God cannot cope with her soul being stretched out, and I can guide people, you know. I'm confused about Britney Spears' mental illness, you know. She's totally mad. Like, I don't think that's an act. I think it's too mad that it's too mad, it's gone on too long, and it just makes me think, well, what was she 20 years ago? You know, she didn't seem mad back then. She was always trying to please people and be happy, and maybe, you know, if maybe she was just a robot back then, and my higher self was controlling her, but there's only so many people that my higher self can control, and I think I don't know. I want to know the answers, but I can only know the answers if I talk to these people and get their view, you know. I shouldn't just judge Britney based on the Instagram post, because there's a small chance that everything on her Instagram post is actually just fake, and maybe she's actually dead, you know. Maybe she died 10 years ago, and that people have decided to create some sort of mad version. I don't know. I don't think that's the truth, but I don't know. You know, I don't know. And I'm constantly in darkness. People are constantly keeping me in darkness, and I can't enjoy my life. I can't work. I can't do anything until I get these answers. And I don't, at this stage, I don't even know if anyone knows about me, because maybe every single person on this planet is just a robot. Some have lived 10 lives, hence they're more emotional and they're more intelligent, and some have lived one life, hence they will just think, someone's showing emotion, they've got no there's no reason to not want to have a child. There's no reason to terminate the life of your child, no reason whatsoever. Children are not expensive. Children don't need bedrooms. Children don't need food. Children don't need you to stop working so you can look after them. Children don't need money. All they need is just help from the government. And this help from the government, it's just a government agency coming over and just helping them. It doesn't mean stealing money off the rest of the public and taking money off that they don't really want to give, or money that they don't even have. It doesn't mean any of that. Just to be so blank and to genuinely believe what you're saying whilst having no clue that what you're saying just has no logic to it. It's insanity, but it's not led by emotions. I think that's the difference between insanity and emotions. Being insane and having emotions makes you look bipolar, because you're unable to control your emotions. You've got some sort of you've got logic, but sometimes your emotions make you seem illogical, but you've still got the sort of stupidity, hence why you can get angry over your own views, and sometimes, like, I think that woman got angry because she started to realize the suffering that might have been caused by her being adopted. I keep saying the word fostered rather than adopted. They're two different things. Foster is temporary and adopted is permanent. But yeah, often adoption turns into fostering, because they say, okay, this is a permanent arrangement. 2 years later, they have moved on, or they've got their own kids, or I don't know. Sometimes it changes, and they don't stay in that position. And sometimes fostering or adopting a kid is a big, long process, because the foster care system want to make as much money out of it as possible. And to think that the government is in trillions of pounds of debt, and there's morons that can just go on a camera and just be like, oh, the government should help them. Yeah, well, the government's in trillions of pounds of debt, according to the public, according to what's being said online. How can the government help them with money that they don't have, by taking it off people who also are struggling? Just to be so mindless, and to think that you're the one that's thinking of all the possibilities and all the ideas, and you're the ones that have truth in you, and people like this who are just saying, about the problems of it, they're just people that just don't have an argument. They're just run by emotion, and that's it. They've got no logic to them. Whilst just, how can people be so unlogical whilst thinking that everyone else is the ones that have no logic? This world is terrible. This world is terrible, and the more people there are, the more morons there are going to be. The more morons there are going to be that fight the argument of just create more morons. It doesn't matter about the soul. It doesn't matter about making people have good lives and giving, the more people there are, the more houses are going to be expensive, because the more demand there is for them. And the more expensive they are, the more people have to be a slave just to be able to buy a house. I mean, the fact that land is more expensive than a house is crazy. You shouldn't have to pay to live on land. A house should be worth what it costs to build, not what it costs to build on top of, 10 times more just for the land, plus you have to bid out all the other people that are just wanting to take out loans so that they can take your house, hence why the house prices is so high. The government needs to work harder to make house prices affordable, and you do that by trying to encourage as many abortions as possible, so that there'll be less demand for houses in 20 years time. But I think it's too late. I think abortion is not enough. I think the world actually needs murder, and this whole 8-year-old, I do generally think that this is the case, and I think it because the standard of this world is so terrible that we need to get rid of the robots, the people that are just have no emotion, have no sense of truth, have no ability to understand what's right and what's wrong, what's true and what's not. The people that are just causing more problems. There's not too many people here. We need to just help them. The government just need to take money off the people who are already struggling and just give it to them, because that's all they need. And then there could be even more kids here.